Good afternoon. Vladimir Putin has vowed to brutally punish the head of Russia's biggest paramilitary group for launching what he called an armed rebellion against Moscow. Yevgeny Prigozhin says 25,000 of his Wagner mercenaries have left the fighting in Ukraine and taken control of the Russian city of Rostov-on-Don. He says his soldiers are patriots, not traitors, who want to remove the head of the army. Well, here the Ministry of Defence say other Wagner units appear to be heading towards Moscow. The Prime Minister Rishi Sunak called on all sides to protect civilians. Martha Fairley has the latest.
Russia's war against Ukraine is being run from the southern city of Rostov-on-Don, but this morning it was not clear who's in charge. Military vehicles and troops on the street attracting crowds, thought to be part of the Wagner private military group. Its leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, appears to have taken control of the military headquarters there. In a statement, Britain's Ministry of Defence confirmed Wagner Group forces crossed from occupied Ukraine into Russia in at least 2 locations. In Rostov-on-Don, Wagner has almost certainly occupied key security sites. Further Wagner units are moving north, almost certainly aiming to get to Moscow. President Putin has responded, calling Wagner's actions a deadly threat.
This is a blow to Russia, to our people, and our actions to protect the fatherland from such a threat will be tough. All those who deliberately embarked on the path of betrayal, who prepared an armed rebellion, will suffer inevitable punishment, will answer both to the law and to our people.
Unverified pictures show the aftermath of what Wagner chief Prigozhin yesterday claimed was a deadly Russian missile attack on a Wagner base camp. And in an audio message this morning, he says his fighters will not turn themselves in. He denied this was a military coup, calling it instead a march for justice.
We're keeping a close eye on the situation as it's evolving on the ground as we speak. We're in touch with our allies, and in fact I'll be speaking to some of them later today. But the most important thing I'd say is for all parties to be responsible and to protect civilians.
As Moscow announces additional counter-terror measures, this video broadcast on Russia Today appears to show people fleeing from an explosion at the military HQ in Rostov. It's not yet clear how the Russian security forces will respond to this crisis. Martha Fairley, ITV News.
So the Prime Minister, the Foreign Office and the Ministry of Defence have all weighed in on what is happening in Russia. Our political correspondent Libby Wiener is with me now. Libby, what's been the latest reaction?
Well, I understand that the Foreign Secretary is currently chairing an emergency COBRA meeting to discuss the crisis. As we've seen, all the Prime Minister has said is that both sides should try and protect civilians. But this is a huge moment for Russia, for Ukraine and for the West. President Zelensky of Ukraine tweeted this morning saying everyone who chooses the path of evil destroys himself. It is a major opportunity for Ukraine to go on the offensive and try to drive Russian troops from its soil. But while the West may be very keen to see the back of President Putin, I think the idea of a civil war within Russia is very alarming indeed. After all, it is a nuclear power. Now, it may not come to that. This rebellion may peter out. But I think around the world there is considerable concern as to how this situation could develop in the next few hours.
OK, Libby, thank you very much. Warnings over the safety of the Titan submersible, which was lost near the wreck of the Titanic, were repeatedly dismissed, according to emails seen by ITV News. In the messages, OceanGate boss Stockton Rush was told he was potentially putting his clients at risk. Rush and 4 others died when the craft imploded. Callum Watkinson reports.
The vessels involved in the search for the Titan submersible made their way back into Newfoundland harbour yesterday. The question of what happened now answered. And the question of how it happened must now be too. One deep-sea exploration expert says he's been warning the OceanGate CEO about his craft for years, and he wasn't the only one.
It was predicted by many people within the community who all, without exception, operate classed and certified vehicles. And we identified that an outlier, someone who wasn't prepared to adhere to the highest possible standards was a risk.
In a 2018 email to Stockton Rush, Mr McCullum expressed apprehension that the current experimental approach adopted by OceanGate could result in negative outcomes, from minor to catastrophic. In reply, Mr Rush expressed scepticism about the regulatory process. "I have grown tired of industry players," he said, who tried to use a safety argument to stop innovation and new entrants from entering their small existing market. Mr McCullum also described what he called a toxic culture at OceanGate that he says took safety concerns as insults. Callum Watkinson, ITV News.
Scotland's First Minister Humza Yousaf has been heckled at an SNP conference in Dundee. Mr Yousaf left the stage to speak to the protester for several minutes. In his speech, he said the next Westminster election should be used as a manifesto for an independent Scotland. The Energy Security Secretary, Grant Shapps, has signalled he will drop a planned green tax on energy bills. The levy was to be introduced in 2025 to support production of low-carbon hydrogen. And the UK Health Security Agency have a yellow alert in place throughout the weekend. It is predicted temperatures could rise above 30 degrees in the southeast. And that is all for now. Paul Brand is here with all the latest developments at 6 o'clock. Until then, do have yourselves a great afternoon. Bye-bye.